Dr. Jazz.
Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
That considering how busy you are with putting out music, I think you must be in a lot of to find a date. I thought, I was like, man, we're never gonna do it, but okay, we managed.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of your music for such a long time, really, and even lately when I check what you've done, like it's incredible, just the amount of music and the level also, and so yeah, really happy to talk today. So, and
thank you.
I'll just jump in, Ben. You've done a couple of projects lately within a year almost that are really all really great, or let's say last 1 year and a half, and that I followed on Bandcamp. And first I want to talk about The Thoughts of a Werewolf, which is kind of this series of solo clarinet playing. And how do you approach this usually? I mean, it's it reminds me, you have one tune also for Steve Lacy, who I want to touch later. I think you and Steve had a relation, but it reminds me somehow, even though it's a different instrument, of Steve Lacy's solo saxophone playing. Like, how did you approach this one, or do you approach solo performance, I mean, in general?
Well, Steve Lacy has been very, very, very important to me in my life, and I feel like maybe we can talk more about it later. But
since we are mentioning Steve now, I mean, I really let's start with Steve also. I mean, how did you guys hook up anyway, and like, what's the story with Steve?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was younger, I mean, Steve Lacy was basically my hero. He was my musical hero. His music touched me so deeply, and I was so like intrigued by like what was he doing? Like those weird intervals and everything kind of made sense, but it's like it made sense in a different universe or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, like those solo pieces that I've been recording, I feel like they are kind of all of them are kind of touched by Steve Lacy, because I'm not that I'm necessarily copying like Steve Lacy's language, but I feel like it's important to work within my language that's based on similar principles that Steve Lacy he passed along to me, and the principles of like paying attention to intervals, creating structures in terms of the relationships of the pitches that you're using, and then finding a way to speak with those materials. So yeah, Steve Lacy's he's always close to my heart, always.
Yeah, I think he's one of those quite underrated players in the history of the music. I don't know. It's like the younger generation, when you mention Steve Lacy, many of them are just like, who?
Strangely, there's a pop musician these days who's also named Steve Lacy.
Oh really? Oh shit, I don't even know.
He's become very popular.
Really? Oh wow.
So if I mention Steve Lacy to my students, I have to be careful to tell them not the guy who sells all the records, but you got to check out this other Steve Lacy.
But how did you were a student of his, or were you influenced by? I mean, obviously you were influenced, but how did you guys meet?
Yeah, we met. We met, and I had already been I had already been a student of his music, because I kept trying to figure out, based on his records, like what he was up to. And then I started following him around whenever I was in Paris. I would just go wherever he was. Like he played a lot at the Sunset, I think. And so I used to go over there, and every time I went there, I'd say like, I was surprised. He kind of knew who I was. I introduced myself once, and then subsequently he always recognized me, which I thought was kind of amazing. And I would always ask him for a lesson.
Okay.
And he would always say, "Nah, I'm not a teacher. I don't have time. I'm leaving for tour tomorrow." And I think finally I just bugged him enough that he said, "Yeah, all right, fine." come over tomorrow afternoon. I went over to his place, and we spent about 3 or 4 hours together, and he showed me a lot of stuff. He really set me straight. And basically, he pointed towards like what he showed me was that you have to find exercises for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That are aimed at uncovering the basic elements of music. And really, like, as long as you're aimed in that direction, you're always going to come up with something that's just you.
Yeah.
It's always going to be you, because if you're working for and trying to uncover and trying to find out about the real basic building blocks, then whatever that turns into, that's totally yours.
Language, yeah. Did you do more of these lessons, or was that only just once? Once. Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. But you never played together, right on a stage, or did you?
No, we never played together.
Okay.
And I tried to drop some hints to him over the years, like that I wouldn't mind being in his band. He never acknowledged that he understood that that's what I was hinting at. So no, we never played together.
But if I now return to the solo stuff that you're doing, so basically you're applying some of these principles you learned, but when you do even a solo, let's say, gig, how do you prepare for that? I mean, I did a couple of solo gigs for the first time in my life pre-COVID. And for me, as a guitar player, even it was scary, even though I have a harmonic possibility. I think for a horn player or for, a woodwind player, it must be it's you're naked, basically. Like, how do you prepare for such a scenario or an album or live concert?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I feel like how you prepare is just that you just live your life. You just work on what you work on, and then one day you walk into a room with other people and do a solo show, and that's all you have to rely on. All you have to rely on is the ways that you've prepared yourself to remain relaxed and open-minded, even in a situation that could cause you to become anxious.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like. For a while I've tried a lot of different approaches to solo playing, but one thing that I did once, I did about 3 or 4 of these shows, solo concerts where I would begin by talking, and I would my goal was to just talk as long as I could and say whatever was on my mind, and to only start playing the clarinet when I couldn't think of what to say next.
Oh, okay.
And that was a nice experiment, because it kind of, for me, it helped me blend the conversational aspect of music or of performing with the instrumental, so that one would interrupt the other. And I don't do that anymore, but I felt like I really learned something from it.
I mean, especially horn players, that's like, you're basically, I mean, we all should be, right? Like almost talking when we solo. It's
and clarinet it's good for that, because you use your lips and your tongue.
Yeah.
And you can kind of just speak into the instrument. Yeah. So that in some ways is I mean, that's a wonderful aspect of the clarinet, because basically you're using the same muscles that you use when you speak.
Yeah.
And
that's, I always try to tell my students, think like a horn player, or like when you have guitarists, they're just like, man, breathe, is that how you talk? Like this.
You can play a lot of notes.
Yeah, it's like, there are so many jazz guitarists as well. I mean, I won't go into names, but who's, just like,
so many notes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Bill Frisell, for instance. He's one of my favorites.
Totally. He's telling a story. Bill is telling a story.
Yeah, like plays 2 notes, and it's just like, yeah. That's
I'm
beautiful.
going to show you something else. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah.
When I was a kid, my father was a professor at the university, and he's a professor of speech communication.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I knew that at his, when I started playing the clarinet, I knew that at his office or at his department, they had some Manhasset music stands because they used them when people were giving speeches. And I said, could you bring some home for me? Because I want one of those nice music stands. And he did. He brought it home, and I'm going to see if I can show this to you. But because it came from the speech department, somebody
Yeah,
had painted the word speech on the music stand.
that's quite cool.
This is the same music stand that I've used for the last more than 50 years of my
Oh, it's
life.
beautiful.
And it's only recently that I've kind of put it together. And I thought, wow, look at this. I've been staring at the answer the whole time. For 50 years, I've been staring at the exact answer to how to play music, speech,
Yeah.
just talk. And that's when I really started thinking about the blending that stuff together and using the shapes of speech
Yeah.
to shape music.
Yeah. Yeah, and to listen and make pauses, and yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
But we need so much time to learn that, at least, you know, to become aware of that. That's
To become aware of it, and there is a necessary learning curve, because
yeah.
when you're young and you need to learn an instrument, you have to do a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
There's so much hard work involved in just getting comfortable with an instrument. So it kind of makes sense that we lose track of that for a while, because we have to be so focused on the technical aspects of things.
Yeah, you want to show that you can play fast and that you can do some things. Just, I mean, that's true. It's like the other day I was listening to Schofield's early records, right? With Nussbaum and Steve Swallow, that like late 70s, and he's like shredding there, you know. And now I listen to Dunn, and it's like he plays this amazing lines. I mean, he always has, but back then it was just so fast. Also, you know, like it's funny. Of course, he was younger, you know. He had to kind of prove, but
it's so interesting. I mean, just yesterday I was watching a video of myself that was taken about 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And I was amazed at how fast I could play. I can't play that fast anymore. I used to be able to play really fast. It was amazing.
Well, I listened to the other day to Junk Genius. I have it on CD, actually.
Oh, Junk Genius. There's some fast music.
On CD format, I still have it. And I still have a CD.
You have the CD?
Yeah, I still have a CD player. Can you believe that? And of that Junk Genius, actually, I have it. And I was like, man, you guys are burning on that one. You know, it's like...
some of those songs, the whole point was to play as fast as you can.
So
that was
yeah,
the whole idea.
You were there as well. So
I'll tell you a funny story about that record. The intention when John Schott and I first started getting together and learning the songs that ended up on that record, the goal was to learn those songs so that we could play them and not embarrass ourselves at jam sessions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why we started learning. It was like, hey, let's, you know, like I need to learn those songs that everybody plays at jam sessions. So we learned Erigen and Sean. I don't think people were playing Sean off at jam sessions, but some of those Dizzy Gillespie songs and stuff like that. That was the intention. And we got together every week and kept working on that stuff together. And then at a certain point, stuff started getting weird. It started getting weirder and weirder, but almost like all by itself. Like we didn't really decide that we wanted to get weird with it. We were just trying to get normal with it. But the weirdness kind of took over. And then we realized that we had something and we should probably try to record it.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that it becomes weird because you have Trevor and Kenny also, which it's in a positive sense. Like it's really like, what is happening there? Sometimes,
and Schott and I have been learning that stuff for like 2 years, and Trevor and Kenny they just walked into the recording session and just played whatever they felt like playing. I think it worked pretty good.
Oh, it's a beautiful record still, yeah. I mean, even now, like if you put it on, it's not connected to time, I think, which is good. When you listen to some of the, let's say, mid 80s fusion stuff, even that the greats did, like Chick Corea, which I love that stuff, but it's like 1986 Electric Band, and it's really like so connected. And well, this record and many of the other Knitting Factory stuff, I think it's still modern nowadays when I listen to it. Like, it's like, wow.
Very interesting.
I don't know, maybe it's the sound or how you guys approached, like,
I think there's a kind of, I think maybe there's a kind of stubbornness in that music.
Maybe,
that keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
Because we weren't trying to be part of something. In some ways we were kind of pushing against something.
Yeah. I mean, that whole downtown scene, I think or New York scene that in the mid 90s, that must have been, I mean, I did this talk with so many guys from that area and time, and it's just incredible, the creativity that was there. It seems to be there. It's just like,
yeah, totally. And
crazy,
you
really
get the feeling that people were just sitting around wondering, like, what weird thing can I do with music? And that's a beautiful thing, especially if there's a lot of people doing it.
Yeah, it's beautiful, that stuff. I really like it.
Yeah.
And but I wanted to ask you first, like, also I want to return to this New York stuff that you guys did, but I also wanted to ask you, now you're kind of on, I think, on the other side of the table almost, that you're inviting also younger people to your groups, and
yes,
and I listened to this Hard Science, the school volume 2, and it's such a beautiful project, and I read the liner notes, but I still want you to explain the idea behind it, that you kind of didn't want to give people actually lead sheets, or that, I mean, what's the idea of this school project that you have, or group, or?
Yeah, well, that music, well, let's see. It was like July of 2021 or something like that. And I had been writing solo clarinet music before that, because it was the end of the pandemic. I mean, not the end.
Exactly.
We were in the pandemic, and first I did all those recordings for Plague Diary. And then I started just playing my clarinet, and I started writing down little melodies that would occur to me. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to memorize these. I'm going to put some of them together, A section, B section, turn them into songs and memorize them. And it was fun to memorize them because all the songs were written on the clarinet, so they already felt good to play on the clarinet. It's a nice thing to have, So I memorized them. And then I invited my band to meet me in the studio. And my basic idea was, don't give them written music. Don't give the band written music. In truth, I had to send. I decided I should probably send people just a couple of things, that little tricky things that it would be hard to just pick out of the air. So I did send them some written music, just a couple of passages. I said, learn these and we'll play them in the studio. So, but my basic idea was, I wanted to. My idea was, I would in the recording studio, I would just start playing a song and just tell everybody else, grab onto it as best you can.
Okay. Wow.
Okay, and there's two things. One is that when I'm in that situation and somebody says, hey, I'm going to teach you a song, and they just start playing it, and you're just trying to jump on it and just grab onto anything that you can find in it, I've found that it always really opens up my mind. It opens my ear, and that experience really opens the ear. So I thought, okay, I'm going to make that experience part of an actual recording. And I knew the music by heart. I had memorized all the songs. So most of what I did on that record was just play the songs, just keep playing those melodies over and over, and everybody else is jumping in, trying to imagine a harmony, making up some weird groove that might go along with the thing. I actually had a philosophy about it, which was that I felt like everybody in my band can read music really well.
Sure.
And that's kind of ultimately that's not that important of a skill. I mean, it is important if somebody wants to give you written music, but I felt like if I just hand them written music, then everybody's going to get to hear how good those musicians are at reading, and they're great at reading. There wouldn't be anything wrong with it, but I felt like, wow, that sitting there reading a chart really is just like one part of what a human being can do with music. And there's a lot of other things, like try to hold on to something, lunge for it, push against something that you're hearing, whatever, join in without knowing anything about it, but just with a wonderful spirit, or anything, all kinds of lovely things that a person can do in relation to music, that other than reading from written music. So that's my hope, was to bring that spirit into the recording studio. That was what I was hoping for, and I think it worked. Actually.
Yeah, it's a nice way to open the ears. That's so important what you say, because many times I also noted with myself, if I freely improvise with someone, I way more listen than if I'm staring into a sheet of, like, I mean, of course you listen, but I think it's still a different type of listening than.
Yeah, and being in a situation where you really don't know what's happening, that can be a wonderful moment.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I also read you played these tunes with Liberty Allman and Gerald Cleaver.
Played these tunes with, when I started playing with the tunes with bands, I did a couple of shows with Liberty and Gerald, which was fantastic.
Did you record that, the trio stuff, or?
I think somebody tried to record it and it didn't work.
Oh shit, man. Okay.
But we haven't recorded that trio. Then I also have a band called the Glamorous Escapades that's been playing that same music. So that's a project now, is to actually, and I do give people written music in that situation.
Oh man, that trio with Liberty and Gerald, I hope you'll do something. I mean, I love those guys. That's like, must have sounded incredible.
Oh, you can imagine. That's an amazing band.
Yeah, it's just.
Maybe we might record that. We have a concert at the end of June. Maybe I'll try to organize something.
Say hi to Gerald, by the way. So
I will do that.
Please.
Definitely.
Played with him quite some, so
nice.
He's a nice guy. So. Oh man, incredible drummer and such a nice person. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful individual.
Yeah. How do you pick the bands, by the way? I mean, you seem to have, like, as a band leader, speaking of Liberty and Gerald, like such a good nose of picking. I mean, when I look at your albums and bands, I think you have my favorite musicians in almost any group, from Ron Miles to, Gerald to Ellery Eskelin. I don't know. You pick some of those people who are just like so good. Like, how do you decide? Like, even that one, Everything Happens to Me, that you did, like, what, 2 years ago? How do you pick a band together, or even before in the past? I mean, what's your process there?
I mean, it just seems to happen. But one thing that's important to me is playing with my friends.
Yeah.
Everybody that's in my band, I feel like I want to be friends with that person. Maybe we are already friends, or maybe I just want to be friends with them. But I feel like it's just like a beautiful, like, ongoing conversation that way. You have this band, you have that band, just like spending time with people that you really dig, and working on music together. That band, Mary Halverson and Toma Fujiwara and I had a trio called the Out Louds.
Really? Oh man, I don't.
Yeah. There's a record out there. Let me see
I
if
have
I can
to find it. Oh man, please, I'll try to.
It's not online.
Ah shit. Okay.
It's not online because it's on Relative Pitch Records, and they don't put their stuff online. But let me see if I'll find a copy.
Oh please, I would love to hear that. I love those guys.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that band started. I wanted to do a concert with that trio and invite a couple of other people. So I invited Ellery and Mike Formanek, and that felt so good that we decided to record it a few months later, and that's where that record came from. I'm really happy with that record. I think
Oh man, it's a killing one. I mean, in the tunes also that you wrote, that what about, and what the 21, or what, I think that music, like what you wrote, the compositions also. I mean, of course, those guys, you know, you mentioned Mike and Toma and Mary, they played together for the last 15 years, but and Ellery played with Formanek, right. And so it's kind of all connected, and the tunes like that you wrote, I don't know if you wrote intentionally for that project. I mean, do you in general do that you write for the players? Because it sounds like
I think some of those songs were written for that band, like What About, I think was only for that band, and maybe Chorale Type. There's a song called Chorale Type that I think is I think I'd put that together for that group. Some other songs have been bouncing around for a while, like Cold Weather. That was already recorded with Invisible Guy. We recorded that song, but I wanted to record it again. And no, 21. That song 21. That's never been recorded.
It's beautiful. Those first two tunes. It's just like, woo. It sounds like really. It's so I mean, killing record.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you released that on your own label, right?
Yeah, that's the only label that will release my music these days.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you how did you decide for your? I mean, nowadays making a label, it's easier.
Definitely.
With the Bandcamp and all that stuff, but like, actually, why did you decide to do it on your own? I mean, and not shop it around since.
Oh, well, I started that label in, what year was it? 2014 or something like that.
Okay, already, okay.
And it's only because there was a record that I wanted to release and nobody wanted it. So it was maybe it's time to start a label. That was that record called Go Home. With Charlie, Schott, and Ron Miles.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful record, man.
That's a great record. I still enjoy that record.
And Ron Miles.
Ron's on that record. This was during a period when the instrument that Ron was playing was the G trumpet.
Oh, okay.
And that era didn't last all that long for him because he went back to playing cornet and stuff like that, or regular trumpet. But for that recording, he was playing this weird instrument that they had made for him called the G trumpet. It's almost like a French horn, weird like that. Yeah, that record came out great. Anyway, nobody wanted it, so I started a record.
That's bizarre.
And then I just kept releasing. I think there have been times that I've tried to get other labels interested in the records, but I just as soon not deal with that type of.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And like you said, now it's like the machinery is in place.
Yeah.
To release your own records, and even if some records recently we've been releasing as only digital.
Digital, yeah, I've done that too. Yeah.
So who would have thought?
Yeah, bizarre, but good. Yeah, that we can do that. I mean, I agree. It's easier than, you know, in the 70s or whatever. I guess.
Yeah, totally.
But speaking of the 70s, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, you mentioned Steve Lacy, but like, who were your heroes in, I guess, mid 70s when you were a teenager?
Oh, when I was a teenager, who were my heroes?
Yeah, like who got you excited, like for jazz impro and for
let's see,
the jazz language? I mean, or was there an album that you?
Oh yeah, totally. There was one, Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm Section. That was the first record I got. Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm Section, and I listened to that constantly. Then I got some Charlie Parker records. I got a record called that they just called The Essential Charlie Parker. It was on Verve, and it had a bunch of those great songs, including it had 2 cuts from the Bird with Strings, and that just totally knocked me out. I Didn't Know What Time It Was, and Just Friends were both on, and songs like Chi Chi, and just some of those amazing Verve recordings. So I listened to that every day. I got a Sonny Stitt record.
Oh, okay.
It was amazing, called So Doggone Good, and I listened to that every day. And I got a Cannonball Adderley record. It's still my favorite Cannonball Adderley record, called Inside Straight.
Yeah, I know that's a beautiful one.
That's
yeah, that's a nice record too.
That's a really grooving record, and I listen to that every day. And then I found, and then for some reason I went to the record store to buy a record, and for some reason I have no idea why I did this. I found a Thelonious Monk solo record. I think I just liked the photograph on the cover. I don't think I had any idea who Thelonious Monk was. And I got that, and that turned out to be like kind of an amazing record, and one that's not all that well known. Solo Thelonious Monk, and I listened to that a lot, and I couldn't. That was the one that really intrigued me. That's the one that just sounded nice and weird. So that's kind of that's the original influences.
And did you then try to learn yourself, like the principles, like the scales or the language, or?
Oh, I was taking lessons.
Okay.
I was taking, but I was playing the clarinet, and I was being taught in the classical tradition. So, and honestly, that was a time when I was a kid, people didn't really think clarinet was a jazz instrument anymore. It was after Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw and everybody, but it was before me, I guess. I mean, it was before people started using the clarinet again that way. So it was just like, I just played basically band music and classical music.
Interesting. But good. The Monk also explains a lot now, actually.
Yeah.
If you listen to it a lot, this angularity many times in your music or in your lines. Sometimes I hear.
Yeah, I hear you, because because then I found out that Steve Lacy had that band where they only played Monk.
Yeah, sure.
And then I thought, okay, I need to start a band that does that. And I did. And actually, I think I've had 3 different bands now in my life that focused on Monk.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's he was a monster. I mean, in every sense of the word. Yeah. He
really points the way. He really shows you like what the real project can be.
Yeah. Otherwise, but Ben, I wanted to ask you, like, we mentioned New York. When did you move to New York?
I never really honestly lived in New York.
Really? But
the whole time, but I spent a lot of time in New York.
Oh, when did that begin to happen, actually? What period was that? Like in the late 80s or like 90s?
It was back in the Knitting Factory days, because they used to have those festivals there called What is Jazz? They had that festival that they called What is Jazz, and we would go and play at that festival a lot, and just play various gigs at the Knitting Factory.
Okay.
That was back in the days of New Klezmer Trio. That's the band that was that was doing it, New Klezmer Trio, and that's where I met John Zorn. And we went on, there were some tours, the Knitting Factory put together some tours, like a tour of the United States and a tour of Europe.
When did you tour Europe for the first time? You remember that?
For the first time, for the first time playing my music, or music that...
as a band leader, let's say,
It would have been, there was a festival in Munich in 1992, and we John Zorn put together. And he invited New Klezmer Trio to come to that festival, and that was our first time playing in Europe. I mean, I had played in Europe previously, but not with anything that really felt like my music.
Yeah.
So that was maybe the first time. And then that band started making some different tours over the years. So it's say between 92 and 95 or something like that.
Yeah, because you did that with New Klezmer Trio. You recorded for Tzadik, right? For Zorn's label.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, beautiful. I thought you were in New York. Because you recorded with so many New York musicians, I somehow figured out.
It's true. And I've definitely been focused on New York and thinking a lot about New York. And one thing about New York is, like, if you spend enough time in New York, everybody thinks you live in New York. You don't have to actually live in New York.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like I mentioned Kenny Wollesen before. You guys seem to have how did you hook up with Kenny?
Like he was especially 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
Because I was going to school at Santa Cruz, and Kenny was in high school in a town next to Santa Cruz, and he was playing a lot, and we met and we started playing together, and then pretty soon we started New Klezmer Trio.
Okay.
And when was that? I mean, we were talking about the mid 1980s or even the early 1980s. So that's like, it means we've been playing together for like 40 years.
40 years, yeah. That's a long time.
Man, that's a long time. Have you heard the new duo record that we did?
No.
The music for an massage parlor?
No. Do you have it on Bandcamp or?
Yeah, it's on Bandcamp.
Oh,
I'll send you it's not on CD, but I can send you a code.
Please. Please. I would love to listen to it.
Yeah. I think you'll like it.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, because you did like a duo record already in the 90s, right? In the beginning.
Yeah, and this was the second duo record. And
like 30 years later.
5 years later.
Oh, beautiful, man. Super. I'm looking forward. Yeah, Kenny's amazing, the guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's so versatile. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a drummer, man. Beautiful. Yeah. You mentioned Go Home before, and how did you put that band together with Charlie Hunter? And I mean, obviously he's from the West Coast, and Ron Miles is from Denver, I think, as well. And,
yeah.
but
that was a lucky situation, looking back on it, because I really wanted to. I mean, Charlie and I knew each other, and we had played together in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Before he moved to the East Coast, and I just had this idea that it was time to make a record with Charlie. And Scott and Charlie play together all the time, so I can't remember exactly how this worked, because I was in New York, and I set up the session with Scott and Charlie in New York, and then somebody realized, maybe, I can't remember, at any rate, somehow we realized that Ron was in town. He was in New York at the moment, playing Bill Frisell at the Village Vanguard. And I just invited him. I said, let's record on 2 afternoons, and so he could get to the gig afterwards. I'm kind of amazed, looking back on it, that Ron agreed to do that. That's kind of grueling. Spend the whole afternoon in the recording studio and then go play the gig.
Play a gig, yeah.
But he said, sure. And so there we were, 4 of us. And I had spent the previous couple of weeks going through some notebooks and finding sketches of little tuneful things that I liked and kind of sketching them out. And I got, one lucky thing was that I went over to Charlie's house a couple days before the recording to show him the music. And he had some good suggestions also, how to maybe simplify the tunes and stuff like that, that was sweet. And he also took some time to really get to know those tunes. I mean, what can you say about Charlie Hunter? He's beyond human. It's a superhuman accomplishment, because there he is on that record playing bass. He's the bass player and he's the guitar solo.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. That's
at the same time. I mean, you'd think it was overdubbed or something, if you know what I mean, but it's not. He just did that right there. And I was so happy with how the record came out.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful one. Yeah.
Recording was good. And then I gave it to Mark Orton to do the mix, and he really took his time and did a superb job on that mix. It still sounds good.
Yeah. Like, you mentioned sketches. Like, what's your process when composing, actually? I mean, do you write on a daily basis? Like, write ideas and... Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I like, my favorite thing to do is work on one thing and then stumble on something else. So that I always jot things. I'll just write things down, little sketches. Like, what was that? Like, wow, that caught my ear. Like, I thought I was playing the D flat major scale, but all of a sudden I'm playing this other thing and it sounds cool. So I'm gonna write it down. And I've got, I mean, from the old days before we wrote music on computers, I've got thousands. I'm serious. I've got thousands and thousands of pages. That's one notebook after another.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And then you go through it, and it's like, maybe 1 in 20 of them is worth or feels like it's worth pursuing. But that's not bad if you're writing down thousands of them. You got a lot of material then, you know. Now I do the same thing, but on a
computer.
surveillance.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a good idea. Yeah. But do you usually just write if you do it on daily, just like a couple bars of a phrase, or just like a progression or a melody, or?
Should I play something that I wrote this morning?
Yeah, please.
Okay, hold on. I gotta look at this thing.
Yeah. Man.
And that came out of exactly what I just described. I thought I was about to play a major scale, and all of a sudden I was playing that. And then I was like, wait a minute, something's going on here. So I just followed, then I worked on that. Wasn't like, at first it just came out in a very basic way.
Yeah.
But I felt like I could hear the spirit of it. So then when I worked on it, I could hear where it wanted to go.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, nice. Just the melody. That's all about. It's all about the melody. I think always.
And I'm very interested in. This is what I tell my students. I'm very interested in melodies where the melody contains the harmony.
Yeah, it outlines it. Yeah.
Totally, I'm way into that, and based on Bach, based on Sonny Rollins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people that are Louis Armstrong, people that are able to create a melody.
Yeah.
That contains the harmony. To me, I just love that so much.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, you can play it solo, and it makes so much sense.
And it makes sense, yeah, because people can hear where it's going.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Wow, nice. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. The opposite of your solo playing, which is that now is your larger ensembles, and are you still doing that stuff as well, like Brainchild, and you did that Orphic Machine, and I mean, like, are you still pursuing those bigger projects as well? I mean,
I haven't done a Brainchild in a while because of the pandemic. Because to do Brainchild, I have to whisper in people's ears. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, nowadays, I don't know. In Europe, you could do it. I guess in Europe, it's like, yeah, whatever. In Italy, you would be like easy. Just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. But I do like doing that, and a lot of those ideas they're continuing to develop for me. The ideas that I learned from doing Brainchild. I'll just say real quick what Brainchild is. It's a big band where it's like conducting. It's like a form of conduction in a way, but it's really primitive. All I do is whisper in people's ears and tell them what to do next.
Where did you get the idea for that?
Cute.
But I mean, it's connected with speech, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah. But I learned a lot from doing that, and part of what in that band, what I like to mess around with is giving people instructions to do something that's not specific, where the instruction doesn't really specifically contain any musical content. So I kind of got interested in this idea of like give people a job to do, and music will then be a byproduct of it. Some sound will happen while they're doing this other thing, and that can be a very cool thing that can help everybody hear something new. So sometimes I'll just say, take what this other person is playing and divide by 3, or
okay,
that's just so say cool. Triangle, circle, or give just different things like that, where I I want people to be thinking about something and working on something,
Quite cool.
but who knows what the sound is what sound result is. Who knows what it's gonna be.
That's quite cool, actually. Yeah. Like that.
Yeah, and I started working with my students in that way, I'm trying to incorporate some of those principles into the teaching.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I hope you'll continue doing that. I mean, it's an intriguing one.
It always has a great sound. There is a recording somewhere of a nice Brainchild that happened way back when, so maybe I'll try to find that and get it out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great concept that you should continue exploring. It's like it offers very different. It pushes you, I think, as an improviser to a different zone.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, and here's another thing about it. In an improvised situation, one thing I discovered is that in an improvised situation, if you alleviate people from having to think about when to start and when to stop, because that's basically what that band is. Like I'm saying go, and then I'm saying stop to different people at different times. One thing I discovered is if you take that pressure away from people, like that they have to decide when they start and when they stop, and you make the decision instead, it really frees them up. Everybody gets very free, because I think that's a big psychological burden of feeling like, have I played too much, or should I jump in here, or something like that. And you just take that away from people. They get so happy, for one thing. Everybody gets happy. Like, just go. That's all you need to do is go.
Yeah. And you really get rid of the empty space many times. Sometimes when improv starts, you have like 2 minutes of this, almost.
Yeah, like finding, like a little bit of finding and searching and.
Yeah. Which it's not wrong or per se or bad, but sometimes it can be like this moment of, okay, and I think with your idea, it's just like, boonks, okay, we're there. Let's play ball, and beautiful. Yeah. Ben, I also wanted to ask you about mentioning guitars before. Like, how did your story with Nels Cline begin? And
well, Nels and I knew each other from way back in when he was living in Los Angeles, and I was going down. I was living in the Bay Area, and we would often travel to Los Angeles because there was a lot of clubs where you could play in Los Angeles. What would it have been? The 90s, I guess. Yeah, I guess the 90s. There was a lot of places to play, and we would often go down there and play. And Nels was so much part of that scene. He was right in the middle of not just like jazz, rock, improv, indie rock people, and avant-garde jazz people, everything. Nels was right in the center of so much for very good reason.
Yeah.
Such a friendly guy. So we became friends then. And then when did we start actually playing together? I think Nels invited me to sit in with the Nels Cline Singers.
Yeah, okay.
We had a show in Berkeley, California. And it must have been, I'm just trying to think, because it must have been before Orphic Machine. Oh, no. I'm pretty sure the first record I made with Nels was Unfold Ordinary Mind.
Okay.
And so I think I just had the idea. And for that record, the idea that I had was I felt like I wanted to make a record where I was the bass player, playing the contra alto clarinet. I just had that idea. I was like, I really want to do this. So I wrote a whole bunch of music, and then I thought of the band, and I thought like Nels, cool. Yeah, I'm the bass player, get Nels in it. Chess, of course, because I wanted it to be. I did have the vision that the music needed to have a strong groove. That's what I want. That's what I felt like doing. Something that had like a kind of ferocious groove or something.
Yeah, he's a monster for that.
And then why not have two tenor saxophone players on top of that? That I'm so happy I did. I'm so happy I invited Ellery and Rob Sudduth to both play on that record.
Yeah, you always pick good horn players. I mean, Josh Redman or whoever is just like, okay, like incredible stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a real fun record. That whole record got made in one afternoon
Wow.
with no rehearsal. Just like, let's go to the studio, I'll teach you the songs and we'll play it. And somehow, amazingly, we had a record on it. I was amazed. I was really astonished. And then after that, I invited Nels to play an Orphic Machine.
Yeah.
Orphic Machine. And he sounded good on that record.
Yeah.
Damn. So, I mean, like everything else, it just kind of starts happening.
Yeah.
Everybody was so amazed when Nels got invited to join Wilco.
Yeah, oh man. I spoke with Nels the other day. I mean, like a month ago, we did this serious Dr. Jazz Talks.
Yeah.
And, we didn't talk about Wilco. I mean, I love Wilco, but I love his other stuff as well. I knew him prior to Wilco, of course, not like the majority people know him now through Wilco. And
that's right. Yeah.
But, like the first record when he came to Wilco, like that Blue Sky, I mean, just like, man, he contributed so much to that. It's just incredible.
There's no question about it. And I think it's a credit to that band that they heard Nels and in the context of what they were doing.
Yeah.
Realized that it would be fun to have him in that band. I think that's cool.
It's beautiful.
And amazing to see a friend of yours go from struggling avant-garde musician to doing very well with a top notch.
Yeah, it's nice to see that. I'm also happy for him. Yeah, to see that. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Do you still have a trio? That trio with Tom Rainey and him?
Well, we issued a record with that trio. That, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but a lot of these groups, you know how it is. A lot of the groups exist when the time is right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's my experience.
Yeah.
It's always.
I mean, him and Tom are so good together. Just
incredible. Tom Rainey, what a great drummer! What an amazing cat. He's so dedicated. He always does. Yeah. He always puts everything into it, and you really feel it. You really hear that.
Yeah, he's so good. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. I did my first record in New York with, the Open Loose trio, right? Malaby, Elias, and Rainey.
Yeah.
And I didn't know those guys. That was in 2003. Played together, right? Mm-hmm. Like I somehow invited first Elias and then Rainey because I played with Rainey, and then they suggested Malaby. Like I was, oh sure, let's do. And we did a record, 10 tunes, compositions of mine in 2 hours, in Systems 2, and I was like, my first time recording in New York, I was like, man, this is how this goes. Everything was, everything was first takes. Like we did a tune, like, yeah, that's it, next. And everything sounded incredible. Those two guys,
Oh my God.
Elias and Rainey. I'll send you.
Would you?
It's on Fresh Sound. It's called 2 hours. I'll try.
You named the record 2 hours.
Yeah, it was done. I mean, we did a tune like, okay, that sounded cool, right? Yeah. Okay, next. I mean,
yeah, that's beautiful.
Crazy, those guys. I mean, Rainey. Yeah. I'll send you this one. It's a really nice one. So
good.
I think you like it. So cool. But Ben, otherwise, like, not to take more of your time, what's on the schedule for this year, for the rest of the year? What are your plans, gig-wise, touring-wise, or album-wise, or?
There's a little bit of touring. There doesn't seem to be a lot of touring for me right now. What am I doing? Oh, I've got a week at the Stone in June.
Really? Oh, wow.
On June 7th.
Who are you going to do it with? I mean.
Okay, let's see. Let me see if I can remember. One night of duets with Thomas Morgan, me and Thomas.
Wow, beautiful.
Which I'm really looking forward to. I say no more about that. A night of Invisible Guy, my band Invisible Guy. A night of Ben Goldberg's Glamorous Escapades, playing porch concert material.
Okay.
Steve Cardenas, John Ellis, me, Ben Allison, and Alan Mednard.
Oh, beautiful.
That's a nice band.
Oh.
And then I think there's 4 nights altogether. And the last night is going to be a new band called Microdose.
Hmm.
It's me, Trevor Dunn. Do you know Matt Hollenberg, guitarist?
Yeah, heard of him. Yeah.
Matt Hollenberg is playing guitar, and Kenny Grahowski is playing the drums.
Oh wow, that's gonna be a rockish one. Okay.
That's gonna really be something. They made a it's coming out later this year.
Ah, fantastic. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Super.
So that's what's on the horizon, and then various this and that for the summer, and
Yeah.
you know, life goes on. Recording sessions, concerts here in California, concerts in New York, concerts in LA.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a record next month with Greg Cohen and Billy Mintz and Bobby Bradford in Los Angeles.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, that I'm really looking for.
Bobby Bradford, he's still okay? Still playing still, or
Yeah.
really? That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that I'm really looking forward to.
Whoa, that's whew, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a killer.
I've been writing songs for that one.
Wow, fantastic. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. Then I'll leave you a nice what is it today? Saturday. Nice Saturday. The remainder, and thanks for sharing some of these thoughts. I really appreciate it. So
my pleasure. My pleasure. Great talking with you.
Yeah, you too. And